Good morning. This is Felicity. I am speaking to you from my library, and I'm gonna do something today that I've been thinking about for a while, and thought that I would introduce something that I'm pretty sure everybody who reads a book has one of these. Even if you've got only one bookshelf, one bookcase, one bookshelf, you've got some books on it that you call your comfort reading because anytime things are not going so well, or even if they are, and you just need to take a break, there's one or two books that you just pick up and start reading. You're lost in it, and you can read them over and over and over again. So I have a lot of books in my library, a lot of books, and many of them, a lot of them I've read. Some of them are waiting to be read. Some of them are reference books, and some of them I've read so many times that their covers are falling off, that they're falling apart, and I never get tired of them. So this is a small part of my comfort reading shelf. I do have a few more. These are the ones that turned up this morning, and I am going to show them off because I have a few that I'm not going to show because they're kind of a little too comfortable. So here we go. Here's my comfort reading shelf. Now that I've displayed their charms, I'm going to move them out of the way, so I'm going to just kind of like whip through them one at a time, a little bit, and they're not in any particular order except by size, so they stack very nicely, and I don't know where they'll go because that's where I always go when I need a little comfort reading. Anyway, we'll start with the obvious one. Here is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This particular copy, I have three copies in various states of repair, disrepair. This isn't the most disrepair because this was the set that my family had. My parents bought these in the long ago. This is an old Ballantine edition, and as you can see, the books are really, really, really tattered. I probably did most of the tattering because I read this. I can't even remember how many times I've read this again and again, starting from when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. Mending has happened. Mending has happened. I adore this. Anytime I need to have a very long escape from reality, I grab my Tolkien and off I go. Never ever get tired of it. There we go. This is number one. So this is something a little bit different. This is perilously close to romantic rubbish. It's not rubbish. This is a classic. Jessie Fotheringill's The First Violin is a fairly old number. This was printed. I don't know when it was printed. It was printed probably. This particular copy was printed in it doesn't want to announce. So, judging by the pages, very early 20th century, and this is a really good example of when I say comfort reading, what actually moves me and says I'm going to go read this particular book. Somebody else may look at it and say, well, no, that's kind of rubbish, isn't it? And then they think about their own comfort reading shelf, and I might say that that's rubbish, but it really doesn't matter because comfort reading is whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy, whatever you turn to. And once you start reading, you won't put it down. You know how it goes. You know how it ends. It doesn't matter. It's about that book. Anyway, The First Violin by Jessie Fotheringill. I may not talk too much about each one because there's got quite a stack here. And if you know this book, you know this book, and if you don't, well, you don't. Right. So then this is a little bit different again. This is another one of my absolute favorite authors. I've got a fair number of Tanith Lees that are very close to being comfort reading books. This one is a slim little book, Volcavar, and it is a sort of a fantasy telling of a fable that has a lot of classic fabular, however, elements in it. It's got witches, it's got reincarnation, it's got escape from the body, ghost traveling, it's got demons, it's got lovers, it's got plays, it's got everything, and it's a really, really, really great work. And it doesn't actually matter whether it's great or not because it's my comfort reading, and it's not as in bad shape because I think I acquired this one myself, probably used, but I acquired this one as an adult, and I have tended to take better care of my books now that I'm a grown person. I realize what things cost and I have to buy them myself. Folkavar by Tanith Lee. Yeah, and this one, well, there you go. So, Persuasion by Jane Austen. Yep, it's tattered. I even remember when I got this. My parents went to, in the long ago, went to some sort of a retreat and dragged us all along because I think that was going to pass for a vacation because they didn't have very much money, and I was in the woods or whatever, and it seemed like a thing. So all of us had to go to this retreat, and it was awful. I hate retreats. People, what are you going to do with them? Awful creatures. Anyway, and also to add insult to injury, this whole thing was going to be shoehorned or bookended around my birthday. And I don't know about you, but I like to celebrate my birthday. I'm very happy to be alive and here, and I enjoy my birthday, and I was not going to enjoy having a birthday surrounded by a bunch of yahoos on a retreat. So birthday morning, boy, grumpy Felicity. There's a little package there from my parents. And there were 4 Jane Austen novels in it. And suddenly I decided that the world was actually going to be a little bit better place. I can't have been more than 11 or 12 at the time. Probably something right there, because I also remember taking my violin and disappearing into the woods because it was beyond belief, and I had just discovered Bach, so it was probably actually more like 12. And yeah, so practicing Bach on the violin in the woods and getting 4 new Jane Austen novels actually made that pretty memorable, aside from the retreat. Persuasion, although I absolutely adore Pride and Prejudice, and Pride and Prejudice is probably my very favorite overall Jane Austen. But when I need comfort reading, I usually go to Persuasion, and it's the one, Jane Austen, the Pride and Prejudice, I kind of dip in and I go, I'm going to read that little section there. Persuasion is one of the ones where I start at the beginning and say, okay, I'm going to read this one from end to end. And so Persuasion is on my comfort reading shelf. There you go. Another one. Don't see it. Yeah, I know. Romance novels, whatever. Ha! Georgette Heyer's The Grand Sophy. I have a lot of Georgette Heyer on my shelf. Georgette Heyer is she's a fun writer. She was a fun writer. And her Regency romances are the best. And The Grand Sophy, I think actually it's The Other Change of Hobbit, and the proprietor, Dave Mead, had a kind of a weird penchant, and so he used to carry all these nicer editions of Georgette Heyer. So I got quite a few from him. He said, "You haven't read The Grand Sophy?" I said, "No, what's The Grand Sophy?" He said, "Oh, you're gonna like it," and I love it. And this is definitely one which, of all the Georgette Heyers, I'm most likely to pick off the shelf, and I have read it again and again. It is a romp. It's so much fun. When I need a little fun in my life, I pick up The Grand Sophy. Right. We're almost done with the paperback section. All right, and here we go. I have everything Terry Pratchett wrote. I think Terry Pratchett's God. He was amazing, and I mourned the day he died. But I have everything he wrote. I have everything that he co-wrote, probably, as much as I could find. And We Free Men is, although I bought it as an adult and I bought it new, I've read this many times. We Free Men is hilarious. It's Pratchett at his absolute best. We also get introduced in this one to Tiffany Aching, who's one of my favorite characters of all of Terry Pratchett's, although I've got quite a few. The We Free Men is nonpareil. So this is comfort reading shelf. Another favorite author of mine, Roger Zelazny. I think I have pretty much everything he wrote. Go Lair or whatever. So I read Doorways in the Sand a long time ago, had a paperback copy, and it just went the way of such things. And I finally decided I needed to have this, although there are a number of Zelazny's that I do actually read over from time to time. This one is comfort reading because this is that gonna get lost. You know, it's that sit down with a bag of chocolates and eat them all. Sit down with a glass of scotch and unrepentantly sip away until it's done, or pile of cheese and crackers. You know, those things that are not so good for us that really make everything all better. Well, there you go. Comfort reading. That's what it is for me. So Doorways in the Sand is kind of it's a little bit lighter in spirit than many of his things. It's actually a fun kind of inner monologue with action, with aliens, and so you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys, and it kind of turns out pretty much all right in the end. And there's a machine. Oh yeah, Doorways in the Sand, one of my favorite Zelazny's, and definitely on my comfort reading shelf. All right. Another one from the olden days. So this one was from my parents' library, and I'm not the only one that read this over and over again. This one is falling apart. The pages are coming out. Don't really care. Haven't bothered to get another copy because every time I read this, it brings back very good memories of 1630 Arch Street, where we lived, and various fun bookish things and reading out loud. My mother actually might have read some of these out loud, although a few of them are not really for children. Anyway, Esprit de Corps and Stiff Upper Lip. I think this was then combined as a sort of a semi-omnibus. Was it? Oh yeah. The Antrobus stories or something like that. Anyway, I have this one as Esprit de Corps and Stiff Upper Lip, and never ceases to make me hurt myself laughing. It's that good. There's, oh my goodness, yeah, Krummder soup. Don't get me started. Adventures in the Diplomatic Trade. So Esprit de Corps, Stiff Upper Lip by Lawrence Durrell, and it's got to be one of the funniest books on this planet. Right next to Cold Comfort Farm, which is also on my comfort reading shelf, but it's somewhere else, and really there's already too many books on this little video that I'm doing today. Okay. This one I've had for a long time. This is a little bit beat up because this is along with Apollodorus 1. This is one of the 2 books that I took with me when I went on my first walkabout. I traveled. It ended up being a 3-year sojourn in Ireland, and I'm pretty fond of Camus, and his lyrical and critical essays, again, these are ranging over a lot of his life of writing essays, and some of them, I don't read these ones over and over again, every single one, but a few of them, like Stopping in Oran, move me. Sometimes I just need something to just sweep me away. Not always comfortable, but the kind of mood that it sets is definitely one that I'm willing to repeat frequently. So, lyrical and critical essays, really wonderful set of essays, and this book is a little bit tattered. I have had it for a long time. I was a little bit kinder to this than the books that I acquired as a very young person. All right, what is the paperbacks? Let's do this without toppling everybody. Okay, and Jane Eyre. I can't remember when I got this copy here. This one is okay. This must have been another book that I got from Esmer Clark, because I didn't even remember that one. All I remembered was the Pride and Prejudice and the Plutarch's Lives, but I thought I only got 2 books, but I guess I got 3. Oh, this one was wonderful. So I've got a couple of copies of Jane Eyre in my library. One of them is a little nicer than this and older, but this one is the one which all the words are in the right place on the page because I've read them so many times, and when I pick this one up, I just know where all the words are that I'm expecting. And yeah, Jane Eyre, I get lost in this one. Occasionally I've skipped a couple of the sections, but usually this sort of like proto-Gothic novel never ceases to please. Jane Eyre, on my comfort reading shelf. All right. This one is a fairly recent acquisition. I think I got this one at some point. I saw an ad. I saw somebody somewhere, probably not Instagram because this was before that, promoting the book, saying, oh, how it was wonderful. And I said, ooh, that looks tasty. Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore? What could be wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Aldous Manutius, cults, weird reading cults with code and books and 500-year-old mysteries and type studies and near murder and mayhem and book murder. Oof, it's pretty scary. It's great stuff. This is a very, very, very favorite one of mine. And I think when I first read it, I gobbled it up, got to the end, and I said, oh no, it's done. And I went back to page 1 and read the whole thing all over again. It's that good. Anyway, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. Definitely, it's a newcomer to my shelves, but it is definitely on my comfort reading list. Right. This is my 4th copy of Umberto Eco's How to Travel with a Salmon and Other Essays. This one is, I believe, this was one of the first sets of essays of his that I picked up. These, I believe, are also called from the column that is used, La Busta de Minerva, something like that, which he wrote for years and years and years, and some of the essays are a little bit mundane, run of the mill, and some of them are amazing. And yeah, someday maybe I'll just see if somebody's published them all and I'll get them all. But meanwhile, I have a number of sets of his essays now. How to Travel with a Salmon and Other Essays was the first one, and some of it's kind of spiked, some of it's pretty pointed, but some of them were utterly hilarious, like How to Travel with a Salmon, and also I think I want to say it's getting another driver's. Oh yes, How to Replace a Driver's License. Ooh. There you go. Hey, I'm going to show you. This is the table of contents there. Oh my lord. How to replace a driver's license is how, the ins and mostly outs and mostly getting lost in Italian bureaucracy. God, I love this book. How to Eat and Fly. I'm laughing just thinking about it. Oh, if you've never read this one, this is one of the best sets of his essays. Absolutely adore it. How to Travel with a Salmon. Yeah, from Umberto Eco is another one of my absolute favorite authors, seriously. Right, so I think I do not have a tatty paperback copy of this because I'm very fond of Neil Stephenson, and I do have some of his earlier things in tat paperbacks, but this one I don't. And I've read a number of his books more than once. Necronomicon, I think, was one of them. The Diamond Age is on my comfort reading shelf because it is one of his most compact and I think one of his best novels. Some of his other novels are actually more kind of to the point and actually speak to more modern things, but The Diamond Age is a sort of a fantasy of a future steampunk time, and it has everything that a bookish person could want in it, like the speaking book, which is actually, you realize after that there are marionette strings, and there's actually somebody behind who's actually doing the narration, but it's magical. Yes, any science advanced enough seems like magic. That's actually not it. This is not about magic. This is about science and politics and growing up and poverty and crime, and some of it is pretty brutal, but Neil Stephenson really pretty much touched all the buttons with this one. It's a really great book. The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. All right, we can work our way through here. Ooh, Neil Gaiman. This is a little kid's book. Odd and the Frost Giants. Yep, it's a kid's book, but it's Neil Gaiman. And this one, although I've read many of Neil Gaiman's many times, this one I just have pretty much on the tip of my fingers, at the tip of my table there for whenever I want it, because this one is gorgeous. Got some great pictures. They are with his Brett Hellquist. And I'll just show you a couple of them because this is, oh my goodness, yes, this is, there you go. This is a sort of a sample of some of the artwork. I get it up close here. These are transformed into animals. These are gods transformed to animals by the frost giant. The bear there is Thor. The eagle on his shoulder is Odin, and the fox on the floor, on the ground there is Loki, and there is our hero Odd lying down on the bed behind. And the pictures are great, but the story is even greater. It probably would be the same without the pictures, but oh my goodness, lovely book. I love this one. It goes by too fast, and I usually read it 2 or 3 times when I've decided that this is the thing for me, because it's so tasty. Odd and the Frost Giants by Neil Gaiman. All right. So here is probably my all-time favorite collection of short stories, Shelf Life. Fantastic story celebrating bookstores with an introduction by Neil Gaiman. This one, it's got a few stories that I don't read again and again. This is not a book that I tend to read from cover to cover, but there are definitely a number of stories in it that qualify so deeply for comfort shelf, that I included this because it is my favorite of the short story collections that I have, and I've got quite a few. I'm just like looking up here at my top shelf, which is all the short stories by various authors. This one has so Neil Gaiman has an intro, but the foreword is by the gentleman who brought all the stories together, Greg Ketter, and he begins, "This is my baby. It took 25 years to deliver, but it's a keeper. I first opened my bookstore on April 1st, 1977. My April Fool's joke on the world. But the joke was on me. I remember that I opened a store mostly because I wanted to get my own books less expensively. I found that if I bought 3 copies of something, then sold 2, I could keep one for free. A true fool's paradise. I started selling books when I was barely into my teens, and then later began the work of opening my own store while I was still a teenager. And now, 25 years later, I am fortunate enough to still operate an independent bookstore and publish books by people whose work I like." Anyway, this is a list. This is a stellar list of authors. Gene Wolfe, P.D. Kachek, A.R. Moreland, John Miller, Ramsey Campbell, Charles DeLint, Lisa Morton, ooh, that one was scary, Blind Stamped, Jack Williamson, Gerard Warner, David Bischoff, Nina Kariki Hoffman. That's a really creepy one, and it's phenomenal. Escapes. I've read that so many times. Probably goes right to it. Patrick Weeks. I am looking for a book. Oh my God. Melody Tim, Marianne DePierre, Rick Huatala, Harlan Ellison. So some you would have never heard of, but the stories as collected are memorable. Everyone, and some of them again I've read over and over again. There you go. Shelf Life. Shelf Life. Fantastic story celebrating bookstores. I do. All right, another favorite author of mine, Robertson Davies, who's of course we went with Salterton and the Deptford trilogy and a number of really wonderful works. This one is part of a trilogy. I think it's part of the Salterton trilogy, but I pick this particular volume up again and again because A Mixture of Frailties has a very strong musical base. It's the story that moves around this weird, horrible hand of the dead, the heavy hand of the dead bequest to the couple that they can't actually have her money until they have a baby. Whoa! And until then, the interest from her very, very large estate will be used to send a promising artist to school and to learn. So that's the heavy-handed it is. So that's actually a pretty great outer plot line. But the inner plot line is the artist that he chose is this young, untrained musician, a singer. With enormous artistic promise, and it is about her journey to find herself. She finds herself. She doesn't mean to, but she does anyway. And her travels getting to England. It's not a romance. It's a wonderful story, and it's in Robertson Davies's kind of biting style. And actually, he kind of picks some fun because he brings in the First Violin by Fotheringay as one of the romantic things that inspired this young lady to be an artist, which she finds out afterwards is pretty much smoke and mirrors. That is not what you do to become an artist. There's a lot more blood, sweat, and tears than that. Anyway, Mixture of Frailties is probably my favorite Robertson Davies, if only because this is the one that when I need to have a little pick-me-up, this is the one I pick up. There you go. The last one is kind of different, and I've also had this one for a long time. I think I got this one used, but oh my goodness, yeah, I have not been kind to this one. This one I've had for a long time. So this is Gödel, Escher, and Bach by An Eternal Golden Braid by Douglas Hofstadter. I have this one Hofstadter I'm missing, but I pretty much have everything Douglas that Hofstadter wrote. He's another writer with philosophical or mathematical background who writes for people like me who are not philosophers or professional mathematicians or scientists or anything like that, but just really like reading about things and finding out about things. He is, I want to call him more of a philosopher, but he's definitely got the mathematical training, and it's clear from that. And this one brings in three things that do a great deal for me. Gödel is interesting, but of course that's the mathematical part. Escher, yeah. And Bach, who of course we all know exactly what I think about Bach. I think Bach is amazing and real, and if I had any other thing to show, I'd be showing my very, very tattered copy of the Bach unaccompanied suites as transcribed for viola from the cello, but we're not going to do that because I'm just doing both today. Anyway, here is Gödel, Escher, and Bach, which is a set of monologues and dialogues that between the tortoise and hare and Achilles, and there's some other really, really fun stuff in there. But it's got pictures. Everybody knows this book because this one's been around for so long. But there are pictures and diagrams, and I don't always get all the way through, but I usually have a few of the little scenarios that I go back to because they're wonderful. Sometimes I'll just read all the scenarios because I'm not feeling very scientific, but when I am, this is a wonderful book to keep diving into. And you can see I've kind of read this a few times. The corners are getting a little tapped there. Anyway, this is the last one on my shelf of this is the last one on my shelf of comfort reading, and I'm going to call this. These are a few of my favorite things. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will bid you good day and on to the day, and bye-bye for now.